Greetings and welcome to the module 3 of phase rule titled Components. The session's outcome, the learners can able to explain the term component and can define it with examples. Before going to the session, let us revise the contents of module 1 and 2. In module 1, we have seen the phase rule. Any equilibrium exists in any number of phases which is influenced by temperature, pressure and concentration or composition. Then the degree of freedom F is equal to C minus P plus 2. In that phase rule equation, we have seen the phase in the module 2, that is P, and in this module we will see the components C. What is component? Component is defined as the smallest number of independently variable constituents by means of which the composition of each phase can be expressed in the form of chemical equation. I repeat, component is defined as the smallest number of independently variable constituents by means of which the composition of each phase can be expressed in the form of chemical equation. Let us discuss and learn with examples. If you observe this, consider the water system consisting of three phases: ice, water, vapor. Water exists in three phases, namely solid, liquid, vapor. Whereas the chemical composition of all the three phases is water, that is H2O. Even though they are in different physical forms, but the chemical composition of all the three phases is H2O. Hence, the number of component is 1. Hence, the number of component is 1. If you take another example, sulfur exists in 4 phases, namely rhombic sulfur, monoclinic sulfur, liquid sulfur and vapor sulfur. See, even though sulfur exists in 4 phases, but the chemical composition in all the 4 phases is only 1, that is sulfur, yes. Hence, it is also a one component system. If you take this example, thermal decomposition of calcium carbonate. Here, calcium carbonates undergo decomposition to give calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. It involves 3 phases. One is solid calcium carbonate, solid calcium oxide and gaseous carbon dioxide. Now the question rises, sir, here we are having 3 different phases. In 3 different phases, 3 different chemicals are present. That is, 3 different chemical constituents are present. How we can give the number in the form of components? If you take this an example, it is a 2 component system. Sir, how you are saying it is 2 component? We will discuss in the next slide. Before going to that, let me tell you in the definition, one important point has given the smallest number of independently variable constituent. You have to select a smallest number of independent variable constituent. Out of this 3 phase, if I select any one chemical constituent, say for example carbon dioxide, I can define this phase using chemical equation, whereas for calcium oxide and calcium carbonate I cannot. Hence, I have selected one more. If I select calcium oxide along with carbon dioxide, I can define all the three phases using chemical equation which is presented in this second slide. See this. If you want to explain the calcium carbonate phase, you can represent in this chemical equation form, calcium carbonate plus 0 calcium oxide. Whereas if you want to define the calcium oxide phase, you can write like this, calcium carbonate 0 plus calcium oxide. If you want to define the carbon dioxide phase, you can write the chemical equation like this, calcium carbonate minus calcium oxide. Hence, using this two chemical constituent, you can define all the three phases very easily. I repeat, using this two chemical constituent, you can define the phases exist in this system easily. So, what is a component? A component is a smallest number of independently variable chemical constituent you have to select to define the phases very easily. Sir, now the question rises, sir, whether we have to select these two chemical constituent to define these three phases, sir? No. You can select any two combination from the equation. If you take this, you can even select these two, or you can select calcium carbonate and calcium oxide we have given as an example. You can select these two also, and you can select this carbon dioxide and calcium carbonate as well. You don't have any restriction. With the help of any two chemical constituent present in the equation, you can define the phases in the easiest form using chemical equation. That is the point. That is the point. So I repeat, see, component is defined as the smallest number of independently variable constituents by means of which the composition of each phase can be expressed in the form of chemical equation. In the form of chemical equation. That is what we have done in this particular case. We have selected two chemical constituent, that is calcium carbonate and calcium oxide. We can define all the three phases using chemical equation. Sir, if you ask, why don't we do with the help of all the three? If you take the tree, it fails in the definition, and represent in the definition that you have to select minimum. Minimum you have to select. So if you select one, it is not possible to define. If you select two, it is possible to define all the three phases present in the system. That is what we have seen. Okay. This is the basic thing which you have to learn out of it. So the smallest number of independent variable constituent, that is chemical constituent. Variable means it is keeping on changing. Variable chemical constituents by means of which the composition of each phases can be expressed in the form of chemical equation. In this particular case, in the case of water system, in all the three phases the same chemical constituent is present. So we don't have any problem in this. We can write H2O as one component, right? So it is a one component system. Similarly, sulfur in all the four forms. This is a rhombic sulfur, monoclinic sulfur, liquid sulfur and vapor sulfur. In all the four forms, sulfur exists as S. That is, the chemical present in all the four forms is same. So it is also a one component system. See, for this particular case, it is a two component system. By using two chemical constituent, you can define the phases in a easiest form. I hope you people might have understood what is component. If you have any clarification, you can clarify it in an online session in Google Meet platform. Thank you for your active participation. Thank you one and all.